Well, I think that would be talking then if we disagree. But as long as we are talking instead of coming to blows, we'd be serving the purpose for which we're disputing.
I agree. I think that you can raise your voice as long as you don't swing on anybody. And then people say you're getting violent if you raise your voice. I don't believe it. That's still peaceful.
Well, I think
okay, but there is some
That's a
control.
debatable point.
It is debatable. Okay, so I said, what are we going to say? If that's peace, and it was the biggest one in this drawing, and it's also the reddest. This is red hot talk.
Oh,
right?
well, you know, don't you be calling me a watermelon. You're green on the outside, red on the inside, buddy.
Wait a minute. Okay, so I said, what else would be the others? And these are all pastimes of peace, as it were, but they're more than pastimes. They're ways of, they all grow out of the communicational impulse, it seems to me. And Gary Snyder, one of our principal gurus, and we celebrated his birthday
What a guy
back on the May 8th. Actually, Nicholas was invited to that, but he got shy or something.
Beautiful nature, Gary.
Anyway, Gary Snyder says, in this yuga, the imperative is to communicate. And so all of these angles toward peace have to do with communication. I have left off, somewhat consciously, the pictorial arts, which of course are also gestures toward peace, and they are communicational instruments. But I'm emphasizing here all of those things that arise out of the linguistic functionality of the human being, which the great Russian poet Joseph Brodsky claims is our inherent distinctive trait. That is to say, human beings are most human as language-using animals, and no other animal has language the way we have language. And so language being our most distinctive human trait, doesn't it follow that our goal as human beings should be to refine and perfect our linguistic instrument? Namely through literature and most especially through poetry. Here, says Nicholas, a great poet himself, and Susan is a great poet too, I must say. Susan has not been implicated in the government yet, but who knows, anything can happen around here. Well, also in this scheme here, in the chartreuse or yellow-green, I've shown how we have interlocking directorates, as it were. This is not corporate structures in the usual sense, but I put case... Well, it isn't.
Not unless we're talking corporal.
That's right. Well, one of the reasons why one of the reasons it makes sense to have Dale as my running mate is that he has very important insights into the world of the corporate imagination. And we believe in reality, and the reality is there's a lot of corporations out there. In fact, the Oracle headquarters are in my district where I'm running, I think. I'm not sure about that. If they're not, they're in the next one up. But anyway, the 14th District of California, congressional, includes a large chunk of Silicon Valley. So what I am intending here, my intention, is to create a mountain man movement out of the San Lorenzo Valley and move down into Silicon Valley and say, listen, you guys, we've got to understand this differently. I mean, that's where the spiritual thrust has to happen.
I think you might be surprised to find that many of the people in Silicon Valley are far from being your adversaries in this regard, are some of the leaders from that side of the world with regards to the sort of the threads that we're talking about that form the tapestry that we're trying to promote. Because what we're really about here is a revolution.
That's right.
It's a revolution in consciousness is what we're after. And
in education as a sidelight of that.
You can't save the world. You can't change the world, but you can change yourself.
You can make the world.
You can save yourself. If you save yourself and you change yourself, you're changing the world. And that's what all of us have to do independently and collaboratively to manage to, I mean, the world doesn't really care whether we save it or not, because the world would go along just fine without people on it at all. It would actually maybe in some sense prefer it. But if we want to be here, we need to change the way that we are here.
Well, I'm suggesting that if we continue to make ourselves in the wisest ways, in the ways of the Buddha's Eightfold Way, then the world is made new, and we don't even have to think of it. It would change as an inherent concomitant of our making ourselves in the most asymptotically perfect way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm saying the same thing you are. I think but the change is a secondary effect.
Yeah, I mean,
of our following our own star.
I'd like to give a concrete example of what the gentlemen are talking about.
Thank you for being so polite.
The ability of people that you might not expect to make changes. Susan's brother runs his own business, an environmental energy consulting company in Palo Alto. Now that's about as high tech as you go.
In my district.
Small business. And of course he drives his Prius. But I know that although he's engaged in a lot of computer work, a lot of long-distance phone calls. He loves to get out and hike and bike ride in the beautiful hills around upper San Mateo County. So I think there are a lot of people like him.
I think there are.
Independent people, high-tech world, but they enjoy the natural surroundings and they want to preserve them. So that's progress.
Yeah, that is. That is. That is part of the revolution of consciousness that we're speaking of. And it harkens back to something that Dennis was saying earlier, and that I elaborated on, the notion that we aim to be merely the representatives of this transition, a vessel through which the transition can be expressed. We don't hold ourselves forth as the be-all and the end-all, not even necessarily the best, not even necessarily a candidate for being the best expression of this, but an expression and an invitation to others to express the same as they see it.
You can do this in different places.
Yeah.
We can have overlapping networks that have used the very same model. You make your own mythic government on different historical principles. Ours is based on the fact that there was a Peace Corps. There is a Peace Corps. A lot of Peace Corps volunteers are back in the United States.
A peace force, you might say.
Exactly. We might say that.
You might say a peace force.
Let's go back to the light green here. These are some of the other associations that the members of this particular quincunx within the government have. So Jim Ray is a professor of political science at Vanderbilt University. He is also a past president of the Peace Science Society. Here, Dale used to be. Dale's a kind of a used to be right here. You were a director of some sort of Oracle users group or something.
Oh yes,
like
I've been
for a while.
I've been in leadership positions.
Yeah, right. I have been active for many years in the Unitarian Universalist Society, so I have a religious connection, which I will take plenty advantage of as we go through this so-called campaign. I'm also a member of the Society for the Study of the Indigenous Languages of America. I'm an Indian linguist, right? Dick Eyre, our Secretary of the Interior, runs a big dwarf conifer nursery in upstate Illinois in Woodstock, which is the town that represents Punxsutawney in Groundhog Day. He and his wife together are also members of the International Heifer Project on the board. I mean, on the board of directors, not a member. They go to international meetings and stuff. Over here, Briar Newborn runs her own operation publishing bandana books. She is also involved in this Second Life adventure, which I don't know much about, but see, she is an educational pioneer of the first order, and she is also, as you can go to her website for Beach College, she's trying to start an internet college, which so far has not taken off, but it still has a good chance. So what I'm pointing out here is that we have connections and ramifications into many other corners of society, but we have central vantage, and that's the point. We have from central vantage, which right now is on the edge, but Dale and I have discussed the idea of having two capitals in the new representation or conceptualization of what the United States of America might be, and I suggested, why don't we have the capital at Boulder, which in some sense it already is, the spiritual center of gravity of the country. Not that people say, no, Santa Cruz is, no, we're talking about geography, not.
Well, not
and
only.
then Dale pointed out to me, he says, no, you don't want to ruin that beautiful little town. We will have a new capital. We're going to abandon Washington. He set up Washington as a theme park. Really, you know, historical theme park. Yeah, look at this, the Roman imperial style architecture, and then we go to Frank Lloyd Wright. But Dale has the most brilliant idea. We build a brand new popular capital somewhere between Lawrence, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri, where there's a lot of land there, right in the middle, and that will be the capital for parades and shit. Oh, excuse me.
The representations.
And then the real work gets done in caves near Aspen. No, I mean in Boulder.
The reality is, and it would be good for another reason, which is to say, it would eat up a lot of farmland, which is currently producing corn, which is used for ethanol, and furthering the dependence of this country on this misplaced myth of individual automobiles hauling around, tons of people. And so it would suppress that because there'd be less ground to grow, corn and stuff. So it'd be a good place to have a capital.